Good evening, everybody out there on the airwaves. Tuesday, 21st of March, 2023. You're back for another episode of the Tiger Town podcast with your hosts, Toby on the other end, the better looking individual, Zac on this end, the alternative to that. How are you this evening, mate?
You know what? I agree with that. That's a fair assumption. I like it. Not an assumption, just fact in general.
And just for those that are out there today, 21st of March, just while we're on that topic, International Sarcasm Day. So just make sure we're starting the show in the right vein.
True. So, Tigers played well on the weekend. Let's just follow the theme. Let's follow the theme, yeah?
Contraire, mon frere.
Yeah. Mate, I am, same old. Newborn life. Shit Tigers.
That's it.
It's just, each week seems to be Groundhog Day. So, or Groundhog Week.
There was a particular number, I've forgotten what it is, but the days since the Tigers have won their first grade game, something like 221 days since they've won a NRL game.
Yeah, cool, sick.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic going for an absolute shithouse team.
In other news, I should say, we've also equaled our worst ever losing streak, which is exciting. So breaking records left, right, and centre.
It's so funny. Like after the game on Sunday, I went out for dinner with some friends, and one of our friends is a Carlton supporter. And I said to her, how is it going? Because Carlton, if anyone doesn't know and doesn't follow the AFL, basically it's pretty safe to say they're like the West Tigers of the AFL, if not maybe even a little bit better. They are.
Hang on. You've got friends?
Okay, acquaintances. Fair.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I couldn't get past that yet. Carlton. Okay.
Yep. Sick. Just bag me out, whatever.
No worries. Hey.
Yeah.
Sarcasm, mate. International Sarcasm Day. You know the drill. Come on now.
But yeah, just ask them what's it like to support a team that are just consistent underachievers, shit, every euphemism you can think of. And there's just like, it's just ingrained in you. It's who you followed from the start until you followed to your day you die. And I just cried a little bit because I sympathize so much with that statement.
So, there you go. You're probably more empathized because you've actually felt it yourself.
Probably, to be honest. Yeah.
There you go. I know. We are very adaptive creatures, those of us who support the West Tigers, no doubt.
Yes.
Hey, we lost to the Bulldogs 26-22 on Sunday afternoon. Another really enjoyable Sunday evening after a game of football from the West Tigers so far this season. That's 3 rounds in a row. We've started the season 0-3. Give me a thought. There's obviously like last week. There's plenty of obvious observations, but what's something on your mind in regards to the game?
Oh, mate, there's a lot on my mind in regards to that game. But if let's try to dumb it down into one sentence instead of just going down a thought bucket.
Okay. Yeah. Thought bucket. Okay.
Yeah, that was that just came to my head. That in itself was a thought bucket. It was great.
I believe it just came into your head. I believe there was no pre-planning to that. Anyway.
No. Probably in one sentence, I could sit there and say, do not deserve to be first graders. That's all I could say, really. Like, majority of them. We'll dive deeper into that, but do you have one sentence you can wrap it up in?
In a single sentence, wasted opportunities.
Yeah.
And that bleeds over into the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
all three.
That sounds like a recurring theme.
Yeah. All 3 weeks so far.
Yeah.
Just been wasted opportunities. We very easily could have been 3-0 with not having played much better.
No, and that's the frustrating thing. And then I think I said it to you after the game, we are actually in last position, and we're only I think we've got the 4th worst for and against. So we've only lost by small margins. I think the most was probably the Titans game we lost the most by.
What was the final score in the Titans game? Do you recall? Was it 10 points?
Well, we're 18 points negative. We lost by 6. Yeah, we lost by 6 against the Doggies. 2, 4. Okay, 2. So we lost by 12 against the Titans then.
The score was. That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Not important.
Just as I open NRL.com, I'm just keeping an eye on the judiciary because Hughes is having an attempt, Jerome Hughes, to get it downgraded.
No,
And
don't do it. They don't deserve it.
we know what way way that'll go. Though
Oh, yeah,
paradoxically, on a tangent, Kafusi got found guilty,
really?
which is a mind blower, and he's now lost 4 weeks.
It was. I don't see how it was any different than the Suwali tackle. And he. Oh wait, sorry. It was a rooster against a dolphin. There we go.
It was better than the Suwali tackle. It was less late because they showed him side by side. And at the last minute, Kafusi makes an attempt to pull the right shoulder away from the contact. So actually making an effort to minimize the contact. It's a fucking awful decision. Anyway, we were talking about wasted opportunities simply because the fact that had we not been so bad, we wouldn't be 0-3. Even if we were playing okay, we probably got a win or 2 out of those 3 in the bank.
You would have
That's the really
sure.
Yeah, that's the really disappointing thing. And I guess in one way, if you want to be an eternal optimist, we've been competitive in all those 3 games and we've been disgusting. So in many ways, you would assume we haven't walked away from any of those games thinking we've played okay, we've played all right, certainly in certain parts of the game or at certain times of the game. But in general, we haven't walked away from any of those 3 games thinking that, the boys played all right today and still got beaten or got beaten convincingly. We've been, like I said, we've been awful in all 3 games and still could have possibly won all 3 games. So in a weird paradoxical way, you could almost say that if us being so bad still allows us to stay in these games, then maybe there's a fair bit of upside. But upside doesn't mean anything unless we start playing like it.
No, 100%. Like that game on the weekend, I said it. You and I both had different opinion of who was to blame for attack in the first half. I wouldn't say I blamed it solely on him, but I was more frustrated with Brooks. I thought he literally added 0, where your thought process was Dewey added negative. So I was more comfortable with the Dewey mistakes because he was trying things. They were the wrong decisions. He failed miserably and led to 2 tries. But then you look at what Brooks was doing, and I think I said this to you. I think I saw him pass it 5 times in one half, and he passed it all to Asu. Like, seriously, for a bloke that's in the first grade for 9 years to do that consistently. You know, I was a bit of a Brooks basher last season, and I said in the preseason this is his last chance to prove something because we have the full pack. You look at our forward pack, and Pole ran for over 150 meters. Bloody Clemmer ran for like 193. Got us on the front foot. Appy was out looking for things, looking for that, and I will 100% say that I will bite my tongue and. Not bite my tongue. I will retract what I said last week in that Appy was playing like reserve grader because that game showed that it wasn't actually Appy. It was everyone else around him.
He said it as much in the press conference. Did you listen to the press conference?
No, I couldn't bring myself.
I was about to say he basically said, I'm paraphrasing him, but he essentially said that the Tigers haven't been used to playing front foot football because one of the journalists has mentioned the fact that he's getting out and they basically put him on the spot in the press conference and said that you're getting out from dummy half and you're seeing these opportunities, but there's no one pushing up on the ball. And Appy said that, the Tigers haven't been used to playing front foot football for several years. And so a lot of the guys around me aren't used to pushing up on the football in those opportunities like we see at Penrith and whatnot. So that's part of the learning process. And hearing him say that in front of the press was like, shit. But the fact that he's sitting there as the captain saying it clear as day, obviously it's not something that they're aware of and just not doing or are incapable of doing. It's clearly something that they've just not they haven't picked up enough on yet. And so basically, Appy's still playing high quality football, and the team just isn't good enough to go with him.
And that's the frustrating thing, because my concern is Appy's just going to stop giving a shit.
I feel positive about it because I think the squad is strong enough now around him to make sure that it's not him on himself by himself. If he was the sole signing, I would think so, yes. But I think with Bateman and Clemmer in the side, I think with Papali'i in the side, and maybe one or two others within that side, say the likes of Kapoa and Blore and Pole, who are real goers and have shown that this year. I dare say that there's enough of them around them to start finally sorting the wheat from the chaff, and meaning that those that don't really step up in standards to sort of meet what these guys are now bringing to the table, they'll start to be filtered out. And already we're seeing that, less than a month into the competition, where there's a few chopping and changings going on. And there's one plus side with Sheen's making a few changes really quickly in the year, is that he's not afraid to clearly pull out stops where he feels as though changes need to be made, and he's not changes need to be made. He's not afraid to I guess backtrack on plans they had in place if plans aren't working. And I actually see it as something that the squad can grow into. And essentially, you need people leading from the front, and that's what Appy's doing. And people haven't quite yet followed him en masse yet. But in order for that to happen, you need people. The first thing you need is to find the right people to get them to your club that lead from the front, and we've finally got it. I dare say we haven't had someone leading from the front since Gareth Ellis.
Oh, 100%.
So it's been over a decade. And I saw him Bateman too on the weekend. He 100% will be in that same mold. So we actually have multiple people that are going to start to instill that, but that will take time, because a lot of these guys are going to have to consciously tell themselves the intensity at which they need to play this game needs to change. And when you've gotten used to playing a very methodical and slow tackle after tackle play style setup approach, then you're going to have to reinvent yourself. Some people will reinvent themselves and will come along as we are bound to improve, and others will fall by the wayside, and happy days for that.
Yeah, 100%. And that's to sort of I guess add on to that, the statement about Bateman. I was watching on the weekend, and Bateman wasn't scared to give someone a spray. I don't know if you saw any of that, but he was giving a couple of players a spray, mainly Brooks, which was awesome.
He gave Dewey a massive one when he threw that hospital ball to him.
Yeah, but then there was that bled into Kapoa. Kapoa got that shit pass. Like, Appy's got out, got a great pass to Brooks, and what's Brooks do? Passes it behind Kapoa. Great pass, dickhead. And Kapoa just sits there, grabs the ball, looks him dead in the eyes, and just goes, "For fuck's sake," and smacks the ball on the ground. Like, people have stopped. It's like some of the people that are sick of playing the way that we are starting to give the people that are more in control a bit of a spray and say, "Look, we want to play a high standard football, pick up your act." And that's what I've been saying for like the last, well, we've been doing this podcast now for a year, but I've been saying this for like the last 3 years. It seems to be that people are too precious in the West Tigers. Nobody wants to give anyone a spray. But now it's like, nah, you don't lift your standards. You're going to get a spray. And that's what we need.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's good. And I think that's what I'm talking about. Those types of players are going to drive standards. And that's what they talk about when they refer to the concept of driving standards. And I think there's enough players. They've been able to, really fortunately, to be able to recruit the right players, and enough of them where they can have a big influence on actually changing culture. And when they talk about culture, I firmly believe this is exactly what they're talking about. Essentially, people that hate losing and hate consistently poor efforts and hate lack of effort, and drive the other people around them to be better, whether it's through example or through accountability.
100%. 100%. If I guarantee you, if we had two other halves in that game, we would have put a cricket score on on the Bulldogs. Because you have a look at the go forward we had. we just kept finding our front. We kept rolling, and then the wrong option every single time. We had no one going. We had nothing happening.
Yeah.
And then it was just frustrating to watch. Like, they scored, in the first half, they scored 2 intercept tries.
Well, they weren't formal intercepts. One of them was a formal intercept because Dewey passed it straight to Alamotti. And the second one, Alamotti took a bomb that wasn't covered by any of the chasers and wasn't contested. So it was kicked in Ofaluma's wing and he didn't even go for the ball. He wasn't shielded. He just watched it and didn't defend the player. Then he ran downfield and tossed it to Addo Carr. So they might as well have been 2 intercept tries.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, we go into halftime off the back of that, and we're locked up 6-all. Granted, we scored off an intercept, but
yeah, the other irony in that,
we could score.
The other irony in that is the fact that the game ended 4 tries each. So as much as the Bulldogs built up that big lead, after we scored those 3 quickfire tries, it was four tries each. We were 3 from 4 with the boot, and they kicked a penalty goal and kicked 4 from 4 conversions.
Yep.
So it was literally conversions were the difference in the end, as much as the Bulldogs looked like they looked like. So again, the game was 4 tries each, and we were awful. And they scored, as you said, 2 tries, if not intercept, at the very least, completely against the run of play. So, yeah. Well, the Bulldogs, for that matter, weren't that crash hot either. They gave us a lot of ball as well, and I guess that's the disappointing thing as well. The teams in the last 3 weeks that we have played also haven't been playing well. So, but anyway.
Yeah, like if those teams had played anyone else, they would have got flogged.
So, any other thoughts on the Dogs game? There was obviously a fair few talking points out of particularly that second half. Obviously, that's when everything sort of caught alight and the game got turned on its head a little bit. What did you make? Let's start with maybe the inclusion of Wakeham.
So I want to remember what I wrote, because in the chat that we have, I had something of like, what's the reason for the turnaround? I can't remember exactly what I said. So I said, here's my question. Brooks and Dewey were both atrocious. We can agree on that. But as soon as Wakeham came on, we seemed to have some structure. Is this because the halves are generally shit? Or is it because there are too many cooks in the kitchen? Or the fact the halves combined. And remember last week I said we were playing one half left, one half right. But when Wakeham came on, the halves were combining and not playing lefts and rights. Do you think it's all three? Do you think there is a genuine reason why things turned around when Wakeham came on?
I don't think it's the cooks in the kitchen scenario. I think I responded to that, given that I can't remember the way that I responded to that, but I think that's a bit more of a general analogy, and I don't think it's specific enough to allude to problems in and of themselves. What did I respond to that? Where is that? We have to go back a fair way to see.
Said, what that. It definitely wasn't too many cooks in the kitchen. There were more playmakers on there when Wakeham came on.
Yeah, there you go. That's I guess what I was alluding to. So when Waker did come on, we lost a winger and we put on another playmaker. So essentially, we had 3 playmakers in our starting fullback all on the field at the same time. Thanks for that. That was the point I was trying to make. I think that when Wakeham came on, it was much an injection of energy, as it was his ability to play direct and simplify things. So I think what Wakeham brought to the table in that situation is basically just a reorientation of that game plan, and it allowed he chimed over, and particularly on that left side quite a bit. We saw them make 2 breaks on that left side where they scored their tries, where Naden threw to Wakeham and then off to Brooks, and then we saw Brooks to Wakeham to Naden through. What's the cat doing? He's doing parkour over there. And then obviously we saw Brooks up the middle as well as an option. So I think that Wakeham straightens that attack relatively well. But I think having the thing that I can't undersell is maybe the fact that he came on and just provided that little bit of extra spark and impetus. He was playing a lot straighter. He played at the line a little bit more as well, and I think having him over both sides definitely helped. But you just look at the way that that spark he brought on from the reserves list, but the way that he sort of just had a little bit more nous and competitiveness and go about him at a time when fatigue was really setting in. I don't know that it was necessarily Wakeham's style of play per se that made all the difference. I think that him playing straight as a more traditional halfback makes some difference, but I think it might have been the fact that it was a 32, 33 degree day and it was the second half of the game and he came on fresh as a daisy and played an up-tempo style. And then all of a sudden the passes stick and lo and behold, we score 3 tries in 4 minutes. So I do like it. And I do like what he brought. I think off what you were talking about earlier, where you were giving Brooks heaps in the first half, and the converse to that was I was giving Dewey heaps. I think Brooks most definitely in that second half showed at the very least that when the passes stick and somebody else perhaps is calling the plays a little bit more so, or he can just be rather than be the sole creator of things or the sole playmaker, he's just part of the chain, then he has the capacity to be able to do things. And when he simplifies the head noise in his own brain, and he's just that link man that things can happen around him. And essentially he is the less shit of the 2-5-8 options at the moment.
Yeah, and you know what, like if he actually did something in the first half, I wouldn't have the same opinion of what you had if you thought that Dewey was worse. Like I said, I thought at least Dewey tried something. I just hated that literally it took him 60 minutes to actually get into the game. For me, what Wakeham also brought was his support play. He was always following. And like that's the thing, like that it was setting commentary. I think it was either Freddie or it was Joey. It was setting commentary because obviously I watched Channel 9 instead of KO. It was if you've got a hooker like Appy that finds a gap, the other 3 spine, like members of the spine, they need to follow him every time. It was like he was looking, there was no one there. There was that one that he had in the first half where he made a break, did a 360 and no one was there.
Yeah.
That was so embarrassing.
It wasn't as bad this week as last week, but it was still definitely. Remember we spoke about it heaps last week?
Yeah.
The amount of times he got out and there was just nobody there. They were slightly better, and I'm hoping that week on week they're going to get better at pushing up. But yeah, for sure. It was Joey that said it. Because he said he's used to getting out, he's used to having Nathan Cleary on his shoulder there to pop the ball to, or Luai or somebody pushing up right next to him.
Yeah. And, you know, like you also look at, I guess, who was like, I was pretty adamant that Pole was a fronty, but he might be more of a lock than I think he is. Mainly for the fact that he had that support play in the middle. He actually did quite a few good link passes. And we all know his footwork at the line. I think, and he's a lot faster than I thought he was. That when he scored that try, it's a lot faster than I thought he was.
He was also being chased by Ryan Sutton though.
But he got around Ryan Sutton to go underneath the posts.
Yeah.
So, you know, he is a lot faster than I thought he was. But he also, you know,
these young fit Polynesian boys, man, they're lightning.
Oh, they're so
good. Even the props. It's horrible to play against.
Oh yeah, it's so you don't know what they're going to do. The flick passes are just.
I liked his pirouette.
Yeah. He caught the ball and turned around and then kept running.
We spoke a lot last week about the what if attitude, and I mentioned, I don't know if you recall, I mentioned that when Brooks went for the 2-point field goal against Newcastle, Appy had the what if, where he was the only player chasing.
Yep.
What if the ball hits the uprights and bounces back? I'm going to be there for the 1% chance that it happens.
Yep.
And knowing full well it's probably going to not, and I'm sprinting for no reason, but I did it anyway. Yep. Well, there was instances in the game on the weekend where a couple of the Tigers players started to show what ifs. It was when So when our first try, so Tupou pushed wide, he got the ball inside to Naden, and then Wakeham pushing up, hitting a gap just in case Naden threw the ball, and he threw the ball.
Yeah.
And then Brooks pushing it up on Wakeham just in case Wakeham flicked the ball, and he flicked the ball, and Brooks is gone. Then the same thing happened with both of the other two tries. As you said, Polo, a lock forward in a 33-degree day in the 69th minute or 70th minute or whatever it was, pushing up in support. And nobody
then Staines in the middle.
And then Staines, exactly right. And if you watch that play when Brooks goes through, there is daylight between Brooks and anybody when he first pops through the line. But Staines pushed up just in case Brooks was able to veer to the left enough, which he did perfectly to pop the ball back to the right. And so those are things that are really pleasing, and those are things that I'm hoping are trending upwards, because they're the types of things that we want to see continue to improve. One thing that still continues to worry me, and that I saw a lot on the weekend, and I don't think the Bulldogs really punished us enough, was this sliding defense that they do anytime teams spin the ball. So the Dogs can press quite well at certain points in the game, and we didn't go around them like we have in other games. And then when we had the ball, when they had the ball, they were very often just getting easy meters over the advantage line. And God, it was frustrating. Same with their outside backs. Like Jacob Carraz is 92 kilos. He's not tiny, but he's not the biggest bloke in the world. He runs fast, but so do a lot of wingers. That bloke made 12, 13 meters every single carry out of the backfield. And it was really frustrating after a while. I expect one or two, the same way that a hustling, bustling winger like To'o or somebody like that can get some good meters out of their back end. But not every time. Yeah. At a certain point, the boys needed to get together and go, oi, we're up on these blokes and we're smashing them and keeping them down there. No penalties, but everyone gets 7 meters up. I was watching at one point, I can't remember if it was a 20-meter restart or if it was a kick from a penalty, but we tapped it. We sent 3 passes wide. I think it was a penalty because it was from the edge of the field. We tapped and sent 3 passes to the right. And by the time they tackled us deeper than when we tapped the football. Like on the first play on our 40-meter line, after we just received a penalty, you just lost 3 meters and you went 27 meters into the middle of the field. But at that point in the first tackle, you're not setting up for anything. You don't need to be in the middle of the field. Tap the ball and run 4 meters into the defensive line and get tackled. You're already then almost on the 50. Like little shit like that, where their defense showed the basic blueprint to what all teams should be doing. And most teams do, but yet again, our line speed really let us down. And I genuinely think that the Bulldogs really didn't capitalize on the advantages that they were getting through our lack of line speed and our sliding edge defense on certain occasions.
See, but those sliding, that's a Nofaluma special. We know this. He has done it for his whole career. Now,
he used to be a jammer, mate. He used to be up and in, remember? That's why all the passes over the top, that's why they shifted to slide. Because we were chronic jammers, and we used to get going around and over the top all the time for years. True. People used to do it so easily, yeah. And when Madge came in, they made that big shift to slide defense, and they've kept it for this year. I don't like it.
So I don't like it. Defense?
Well, I don't think that there's only 2 options. I think that you need to pick your moments, but I think that generally speaking, a more compressed defensive line, particularly in the opposition's half, which is most of the sets, is something that we should be doing more of. And I don't know whether it's our backs being lazy. I don't know if it's whether a comment was made during play where I must have been watching I'm trying to think who it was, who the commentators were. They actually made mention of it. They're saying the Tigers forwards are getting up 3-4 meters and stopping. I think for some reason it was Blocker Roach saying it. So I don't know if I watched the Channel 9 one or if I watched KO or what the go was, but they were. They come 3-4 steps up and then they set this coherent line. And I understand that. But when you're shoulder to shoulder with your middles and your edges, if you're moving up together, it doesn't matter if you were staggered by a couple of feet because one person is slightly in front of you, you are still a coherent line. They go up 3-4 meters and they stop. Whereas the Bulldogs defense was moving up 6, 7, 8 meters. It kept moving up until it met whoever was coming in the attack.
Yeah.
And if we were silly enough, as I said, to throw 3 balls sideways and backwards, then we were losing ground on the odd play. And again, it's almost a miracle that we didn't lose tremendous amount of meters or the territory game over the course of that football match because of that. It's probably in some ways a credit to our forwards and the likes of Clemmer, who made nearly 200 running meters, that they were able to overcome that. But it was really irritating. I don't know what segued me into talking about that, but that was one thing that I had forgotten, but I wanted to make mention of.
Well, yeah, I didn't pay too much attention to that. Like, I guess the listeners are probably well aware you look at intricate things of the game. You tend to do that. Where I just scream and yell at the game and, curse every player on that team.
I do those things too. You're not the only one that does that bit, mate.
No, I don't think I am at all in terms of Tiger supporters. But yeah, like if I can bring any positives from that game, it was our youth in that game. I was extremely impressed with Pole. I was extremely impressed with Tupou. I think Tupou earned that spot. I think it's his to lose now.
Yeah, which he has this week too.
Yeah, he has. I think Kapoa has just proven his worth. I think our youth has, that's the thing that, obviously Sheensy has been talking about, with our youth programs, this, that, and the other. But obviously, a couple of those imports, that youth. But yeah, I was just very happy. I thought Staines did a very commendable job at the back. Obviously, he got shifted because of accommodating Dewey. But yeah, it was, again, it was the frustrating thing was our attack was so stale that nothing could eventuate from that. And that's 3 weeks in a row where we've just been frustrated at times with how stale the attack is. But, I guess we remember it's only week 3. And like you said, there were some positives in terms of how we played, not just the players, but how we played in general. At times, and hopefully that upward trend just continues.
Good time to get to talking about this week's team, eh? And some of those changes that we alluded to that happened at the back end of the last game that have been stuck around for the pick this weekend.
Yep.
Okay, so the team reads as such. At the back, starting fullback, we've got Adam Dewey, Charlie Staines and Junior Tupou on the wings. We've got Brent Naden and Asu Kapoa in the centres. Brendan Wakeham named at 6, most likely to play probably a traditional halfback role as the 7, and Brooks, the 7, probably most likely to play that running 5'8" role as a 6. The forward pack looks very similar, albeit probably the strongest it's looked all year with the inclusion of Papali'i in the second row. That means our front rowers, or our front, is Stefano, Appy in hooker, and David Clemmer. The aforementioned Papali'i, back from suspension, is in with John Bateman. And Fanua Pole locks the scrum. We've got Dane Laurie picked in the 14. You and I had a chat about that earlier today, and we thought that would be a good idea. And lo and behold, couple of psychic mediums. We picked it. We've got Twal, Blore, and Seaforth in the round out the rest of the reserves list, or the interchange. Sorry, the reserves list. Then 18 to 22 with Stuff, Patoa, Joe Offahengawi, Justin Matamua, David Nofaluma, and Jake Simkin comes back onto the reserve list after that nasty concussion against Newcastle a week or so ago. So the big one, there's a couple, but the big one there is Dewey out of 5'8" and into fullback. What do you think?
We know that when he's on, he's actually a gun. We know this. But we also know he's a confidence player. Maybe he just injects himself when he feels he's a bit more confident in the play instead of just always having to be that one. Maybe that'll work for him. I don't know if he has the positional play to be fullback at the moment. We haven't seen him play fullback since 2020, maybe 2021, but hasn't played fullback for a while, and obviously that is a very big task from a positional perspective. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Would not be surprised if in defense Staines is at fullback and Laurie's on the wing, and in attack they switch. Would not be surprised.
Dewey on the wing.
Who did I say?
Laurie.
Yep, Dewey on the wing. Would not be surprised. Look, I was saying this at work, like I made it work, was saying that, oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I'm like, well, nothing's worked yet, so we've got to try something. So, like you said before, I am quite pleased that Sheensy isn't afraid to just make mass changes. Like that was one of, I think, Madge's sort of downfall was he stuck with the plan no matter what the outcome was. He wouldn't really change how things were set up. He'd pick people in the same positions if they were consistent underachievers. But Sheensy's decided to do some mass changes, and yeah, that's a big one. Laurie out of 5/8 into fullback.
Dewey.
Bud. Yep, that's the one. Baby brain.
That's not transferable, I'm afraid, mate. I'm sorry.
100% is. 100% is.
Yeah, I think when I see Dewey at fullback, with the form that he's in the moment, all I see is problems, unfortunately. He's slow, he's cumbersome, his positional play is just not good enough. It never was in fullback. And it's not like he's been playing that position for the last 2 years in secret. And we're all of a sudden going to see him be an excellent force. And the happiest thing that we had about having Staines at fullback was that we were actually going to get one. It was a brave fullback that would put his body on the line in situations, had the ability to diffuse kicks, and also the fact that positionally he was stronger than Laurie when Laurie was in there. So that concerns me. As you said, on his day, he can be a game breaker, and he's a strong carry of the ball. We know that. He's definitely a good voice at the back, so he's a good talker, and I think that Sheen's alluded to that in the press conference, and that may be one of the key reasons why he's in that position. I think I might have even suggested that concept today when we were talking about how possibly he could play that in attack and defend on the wing, maybe. But then that kind of negates the whole point. The fullback and 5/8 are going to play in similar roles, similar positions in attack anyway. So maybe in attack, it gives him the option to float both sides a little bit more and be less of a decision maker and maybe chime in, like we were saying with Brooks earlier. So become more of a part of the machine rather than having to do it all himself and have the decisions fall squarely on his shoulders. But most certainly in defence, I have my concerns, and mark my words, if he, as named, is playing in fullback and is lining up in fullback in defence, they are going to be working him over non-stop because he is slow and he's often out of position. I don't think up to speed he's the slowest bloke on the field, but he certainly is not nippy enough to get where he needs to get and to do. I don't see Dewey as a tremendously shining example of effort on effort plays, and I think that the best fullbacks in the game are those that do that. You look at Dylan Edwards, you look at Teddy, all those sorts of people, they'd be likely to make a try-saving tackle 3 metres out and then hop up and race to the corner to bat a grubber dead 35 metres away in about 6 or 7 seconds. So happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
So all I see there are concerns. I like the idea of giving Wakeham a go, not because I rate Wakeham as a half or believe that he is better than those other two on their best day. I just believe, as we've said several times, that we have two 5/8s at the moment, or in the last 3 weeks, that have been trying to get the side around. And what's more, we have 2 5/8s who have not been making the best decisions in the world. And we don't have anybody just to settle and calm the show, which can be the difference between winning a game and losing a game, and very likely could have been the difference in the last 3 weeks between winning a game and losing a game. So having Wakeham there, I think at the very least will be someone who's a little bit more robotic and can be able to strip things right back in the scenario where, whether the game gets away from us or we get a bit frantic or whatever the case may be.
Just back to the Dewey position. Yep. The thing that is also concerning, I guess, when you think about that is how good Harry Grant is at doing a 40-20 from dummy half and getting people off guard. You guarantee that he's going to try that against Dewey. You guarantee it.
Lots of short kicks, especially around in our end zone or in our red zone, I should say. Yeah. Grubbers, that sort of stuff. as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, yeah, I reckon they're going to be working him over,
100%.
both, as you said, to the corners and also under the high ball. And the paradox here is that Sheens likes quick players or speed in his halves and his spine. He said this much, yet I think he's just looking for a place to put Dewey, to be honest. I think he recognises that when he's on, he's a game breaker and he's the closest thing to a game breaker that we have. And so he's trying to find a place for him.
Yeah.
I think I'm starting to form a bit more of a concrete opinion on Dewey, and I like him as a footballer. However, I think his defence is too poor to play centre. I believe his decision making is too one dimensional and not good enough to play 5'8", at least at the moment. His decision making consistently is not good enough. I don't think he passes the ball enough. I believe he's too slow and his positional play is not good enough for fullback. So for me, if you're finding a spot in the 13, I play him at lock. I tell him over the course of the season, then even into next season, I say put 3 or 4 kilos on, an extra couple of Big Macs. We're going to have you in the middle. We're going to have you, like, point me to a better 13 in terms of their ability to be a link man than if putting someone like Dewey in there. The skill set won't be a problem, and he's got the size to be able to hold that position. If you think of Isaiah Yeo, I think of him as a similar style player, probably a better ball player than Yeo, but Yeo is far and away a better defender and physical presence in that space. So if Dewey can improve his physicality and he won't have to make so many decisions both in attack or on an edge in defence, I believe that could be something that could work, but probably similar to Hastings, as I think you might have mentioned, that will end up, we could possibly, if we go down that path, end up with another lock who thinks he's a half.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But
the more and more I think about it, I think that's his best position. As much as he hasn't played there, I think he's got all the makings of a really good modern day lock.
Well, I think the fact is he put himself on the market to try to get signed as a half. He had no takers back when his form wasn't as bad as it is now. And now he started the year off like this and he's been shifted from the halves. In all honesty, no one's going to pick him up. If no one's picked him up for that, no one will pick him up now as a half. So maybe it is in his best interest to try to, evolve. Put your pride aside and realize that maybe you're not the half you think you are.
Yep, absolutely. Become a better footballer before you look at nailing yourself down on a particular position. If there's people telling you that they think that you could become a certain this or a certain that, if you're happy at the football club you're at, you're happy with the pay packet that you're currently getting, then trust the people that probably know a fair bit more than you at the age of 24, and take the opportunity to reinvent yourself. Because I don't believe that any player is a single dimensional player or a one position player. I believe that all players have the capacity, if they were to train and play over long periods of time, to be able to self-evolve, but they've got to want to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just sitting here looking at some updates on Hughes and nothing as of yet, but no doubt he'll get off and be available for the weekend. Given that
if they've bloody if they've suspended Kafusi, the world's topsy turvy. So
yeah, that was a terrible decision. If you haven't had a look at the side by side comparisons on the Kafusi tackle versus the precedent that they were using, which was Joseph Suwali on Chan's Nickel Clockstar a week or two back, in which Suwali got one match, or he got a fine. He got downgraded to a fine, I think. Yeah. If you haven't seen those comparisons, it's worth having a look.
Did Kafusi have any carryovers that we know of?
They were both third offences, so they both would have been the highest level fine, which is 3,000, had they got them downgraded. So he's now got 4 matches because he challenged it and lost.
It's ridiculous. Like, that is ridiculous.
I'm not a gigantic Kafusi fan, but it's just a terrible decision. The judiciary, I just don't know what the go is. Anyway, I'll just ask you, Melbourne traditionally have obviously been a team with a fair bit of a fair few threats across the park. And in many ways, as much as they have lost a couple this year and they don't seem to be the same squad that they always have been, they obviously still have some big guns in there. Who do you see as a major threat? I've got a left field one for you. And what do you see as the path to neutralising that threat?
So the only reason I'm saying he's a threat is because it seems every time he plays us, he flips a switch, and that is Nick Meaney. Every single time he's played us, he's had an absolute blinder of a game. I think
he's Mitchell Moses' doppelganger too. You ever noticed that?
He is, yeah, he does. He looks exactly like him.
That's mind blowing.
He's I think he's going to be looking to put on a show. So he's one threat, but I still like if he gets he still hasn't officially been cleared. He's a 50-50 chance, but if Munster plays, Munster's going to carve us. Absolutely.
That's a concern, isn't it?
100%.
If I was the Storm, and no doubt that the Storm hierarchy and probably Bellamy are listening to our podcast,
100%.
Don't play Cameron Munster. Why would you risk your best player in round 4 of the season, risk re-breaking a finger, which could put him out of action for a long period of time against the Tigers? You don't need him. Just save him. Save him for Origin. Save him for later in the year. It's far more important, in my opinion.
Yep, 100%. Like, you guys are going to make the grand final. You need him for the grand final. Believe that. You don't need him now.
Harry Grant is an obvious one, but to me, my left field danger man for the Storm is actually a player I believe that is having a cracker of the season for them, and that's Eli Katoa that they've bought from the Warriors. That he's a man mount, and he runs beautiful lines, and they know how to use him. He's a real goer. So our forward pack is our strength this year, no doubt. So that gives us a little bit more solace in entering this match against a forward threat on the opposition side. And so Papali'i be marking against him. I'd say that Bateman is probably the stronger of our two defensively. But yeah, Eli Katoa is one to watch, particularly off those short flat balls.
The issue is with Katoa, but I've been watching a couple of his games. His hands are like butter at times. He's had a couple of drop balls and
at times, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's had a couple, yeah. But he's also held a lot as well. So I will give you that. He has had a couple, but yeah, he still worries me.
No, that's not to go against what you said. I agree. I think he runs an amazing line. I think he hits it with speed. He's also got a pretty good offload on him. So if you don't run the ball up, he's more than likely going to get it out the back.
Yeah.
Just if we can do what you mentioned, 5-10 minutes ago and actually get off our line and get in their face, it might be an opportunity to quite quickly shut him down if his hands are the way that we hope they are.
Yeah.
So
yep, it's an interesting one. So yeah, I actually think the teams are remarkably well matched if Munster and or Hughes don't play. If neither of them play, happy days. That'll give us our best chance.
But that's fine.
If if both of them play, then undoubtedly it's a hard assignment. It's going to be anyway. They're a quality outfit regardless of whether those two blokes play.
In Melbourne as well.
It's down in Melbourne, yeah. So
they won't lose twice down in Melbourne.
Yeah. So yeah. I think at this stage we're just looking for continued improvement. However, I would like to see a win. I wouldn't turn that away, and I'm not going to rule it out this weekend. But obviously, a lot of that will depend upon judiciary outcomes, and then probably more and above all of that, how the boys play.
Yeah, 100%. Wanted to go back to the team list because there was a bit of a surprise for me because I didn't think he was doing too badly, and he was our player of the year last year. Was Joffa getting dropped? That one was a surprise to me, and I can't yes, there was one moment when they made the breakup behind the marker, and he was a little bit lazy back, and then he just stopped. But I mean, the amount of players that have done that for us in the last 3 weeks and have kept their position. I just thought it was a very interesting. I'm curious to understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. To me, the fact they picked Seafarth in his place tells me that Sheens is really making a statement in regards to effort and their ability to put work in. So effort, they're going to reward effort players for everything that's said about Seafarth, you can't.
Yeah, that is true.
You can't. Yeah, you can't fault his. Yeah, you can't fault his effort and his effort on effort. Believe it or not, he's actually one of those players that does put effort on effort. He's obviously just one of those players that is higher to capping his potential ability, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be stratospheric. But he's solid enough. So that's what that says to me. The fact that Joffa was picked in the extended reserves and not left out or asked to play New South Wales Cup tells me it's a rap across the knuckles to go, mate, you're still in the squad, but this week I'm picking somebody else on effort to remind you exactly what is expected, because you might have forgotten it last week. And those little bits and pieces, I've got no doubt Sheen's being the individual man-on-man, one-on-one style coach that he often tends to be. I've got no doubt that he and Joff will be having a few words this week about exactly what he needs to improve and change if given the opportunity.
Well, that does make sense too, because the perennial, lazy, I guess you could say, a lazy winger, the guy that always seems to just put his head down and not really give two shits. Noffa was dropped as well, but kept in the reserve. So
yeah, and I think that's a statement for both. I do have another theory, and it'd be interesting to see if it comes off. There was a whisper or two around that they're going to think about putting Bateman to lock, which I don't hate, to be honest.
Yep.
If that's the case, it would make sense why Seafarth is on the bench, being that he can poorly play on an edge. Because what would happen in that instance would be that Blore would play with Papali'i in second row. You would have Bateman at lock. Pole would go to the bench, meaning that if you had Joffa on the bench, you would then have a prop-only rotation of Twal, Pole, and Joffa with Laurie. So does that make sense? So having Seafarth there, if that does happen to be a late change, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it is, this is me just putting 2 + 2 equaling 5. If that's the case, then you would have Seafarth as a second row replacement in that instance.
Yep, no, that makes sense.
So then you would have a bench of 12.
I did read that.
Yeah, 12 Pole and Seafarth. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was the case. Yeah. Hey, Twal is one that's going a little bit under the radar this year. What are you making of his efforts so far?
I think that I, again, can never fault his effort. I think in that second half, actually, you know what? I was saying that whole Canterbury game, I think every run he had seemed to have a bit of purpose. It wasn't your typical run, stop at the line, look for an offload. Yep. It was like, I want to find my front, I want to get up and let's get going. It was like...
That's that word I'd use too, about him.
Yeah, yeah. And like you watch the way, when we got a bit of momentum going behind us, after those 3 tries, off the kickoff, basically all 3 times, it was Clemmer run to the middle, Twal was number 2, and they were both just bringing the defense into the middle, running up the middle, finding their front, getting up for a quick play of the ball. And I think, obviously we scored 1 try, I think, off the kickoff, or maybe both tries off the kickoff after the first try, of the second half.
In the set following.
Yeah. And we were out, by the time they found a break, I think we were maybe on the 3rd tackle, and we were already out to like the 35-40. Because that's the thing that, everyone's sort of not blowing up, but everyone's sort of forgetting of how much of an impact Clemmer is having. Clemmer is having a huge impact. Huge. And I think he's clearly gotten in some of the front of his ears and just said, I'll lead, you follow. And that's what I reckon, that's why we bought him. We bought him to have that impact, to say, I'm 29 years old. I run like a maniac. I'm built like a brick shithouse. I lead, you follow. And because they're all relatively young, I think 12's still only 25. So for a frontie, he's still relatively young. But then if you look at the props in our rotation, we don't have a single prop in their 30s. We've got Clemmer, who's 29, who's a very seasoned campaigner, given that he made his first grade debut when he was 18. But then, like you said, you've got Twal, you've got Pole, who's playing lock, albeit this weekend. You've got Steph, and then I will say too, Steph was so much more improved on the weekend,
particularly in his second stint.
Yeah, he was,
and that
100% improved.
And that just marries back to the fact that we keep saying he should be coming off the bench.
Yeah.
He should be coming off the bench when there's a little bit of that front on sting that has left the game, because in that situation he will just skittle blokes. That's what he does.
Like how
He's
many?
he's a he's a
Yeah,
bigger unit than Clemmer. He's a monster.
yeah. But it is hard to take him off the front. Like at the same time, he does also very. He does take that sting out from a defensive perspective very well as well. But as does Twelve, and I think 12 maybe does it a little bit better. Like we
Yeah.
all know 12's tackle efficiency. You know,
Mm.
it's something ridiculous, like 97 still. So
Mm.
he doesn't fall off tackles. He tends to get them to stop in their tracks. Um, but yeah, what is interesting too, and I just remembered it then, and I remember yelling at the TV going, "You absolute idiot," was the cannonball tackle from Clemmer. Do you remember
Yeah.
that? Did he even
Did
get
you read?
charged for that? He got
Nah.
he got put
Did
on
you
court.
did you rewatch it?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so
So
replay.
he hit him in the middle of the hamstring, so he went above the knee, which he still shouldn't have done with force. And he came with a little force, but he didn't come at the knee or below the knee. He came in he hit him in the middle of the hamstrings and then slid down. So
It's first tackle.
he was lucky he got his height right, because otherwise he would have missed one. I saw it live. I remember seeing it live, going,
Yeah, so did I. Like I
um,
watched that tackle and I remember
yeah,
swearing at the TV going, "That's cannonball, you idiot."
hits him above the knee, clearly above the knee. So that's one of the metrics they use. It's not the only
That's
one,
his saving
but
grace, is it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's
So that was
a
lucky.
tackle I think a lot of people are just absolutely not a fan of in any way, shape, or form.
Nah, of course not.
I think it's an absolute dog tackle.
Well, particularly from the side, like it's not that hard to go in on a leg, wrap, and drop to the ankles. If you want to pin the legs, you don't have to go in with force to knock them straight over. In
No.
fact, you will slow the play down more if you want to by grapping around their thighs and sliding down to the ankles, pinching the ankles as you always do at your chest, and then letting the blokes on top pull them slowly over. I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know why it's been detrained. I don't know why they feel as though they need to accelerate into the bottom half of the leg, unless it's to suddenly get them out of position so the top man can pivot them onto their back. But don't know. Anyway,
Even then, you do the typical slide pin. You can still very easily get them on their back that way.
you know who else was lucky on the weekend was Brent Naden. You know, he had that blue down that side with who was it? It was blue at
Karaz.
Karaz. He was bluing at yeah. And
No,
then
that was fine, wasn't it? When he put him on the ground, just put a bit of shoulder into him when he was on the ground.
that was fine. The very next tackle, he came in with a big shoulder and
Oh, the show. Yeah. That's right.
and didn't get him, but he
That's
missed him. But had he got him, he slid past his head. He came in with a big shoulder, and old mate's head was here, and he missed him. Because if he got him, it was 4 or 5 weeks minimum. It was not good.
Yeah,
And so
I forgot about that.
it's lucky he missed. And that was him just being stupid because he was riled up from that one tackle before.
Mm.
So a
And
couple
that's
of
the
the
thing about
blokes.
Nathan too. He's a tall bloke, so you come in with
Yeah,
a bit of force and you're standing up tall, you're probably going to hit ahead.
yeah, exactly. So a couple of our blokes in that situation there got lucky that they didn't do more damage, and we got lucky at the judiciary. So their discipline has been really good. In fact, we've won all 3 penalty counts in the first 3 games, but the discipline around those little things, they need to be very careful. So the last thing we need right now is a reshuffle because of some ill discipline or some
Yeah,
careless shots or something like that.
100%.
All right, mate. Well, something different. We can have a Friday night, hopefully not ruined this week. 6 p.m. with the early game. Weird time slot. I don't know how I feel
5
about it.
p.m. Queensland time.
You beat me to it. It took the words right out of my mouth there, Meatloaf. 5 p.m. up here in Queensland, probably one of the last ones. I'm assuming that daylight saving time is ending down New South Wales. Maybe some of our New South Wales visitors, listeners can inform us on when that happens. Maybe the end of this month. But 5 p.m. up here, 6 p.m. down in Melbourne. So I don't know how many Melbourne listeners we've got going, but if you are around, I dare say you can go and battle the Sea of Purple if possible.
Yeah, look, I've got family down in Melbourne. I'll give them a bell and say, get your ass down there because we need all the support we can get.
Absolutely. Yeah, good. Mate, 12 is your bold prediction. What's your real bold prediction?
Um, I reckon Capola is going to have a blinder in the centers. That's because I think he is marking Olam, who is, as we know, just
No, I think Naden's on Olam. I was just looking at there before. Capoe's on Smith.
He's on Smith, is he? Well,
Yeah,
then maybe
Remus
he'll have a
Smith.
blinder because he's on Remus Smith.
Touch wood when you say that.
But yeah, I think Capola's going to have a blinder in the centers.
Yeah. Okay,
But
that's a good one. Is he going to lead to anything?
I'm just I don't think so. Like nothing outright. I can't think. Maybe he will set up 1 or 2 tries or set up a try. But I think we're going to come off going, have we officially found our centre parent? Because we know that Talau hasn't set the world on fire, but in saying that, he hadn't played for 18 months. But I think maybe we'll be sitting there next week saying that I think we've officially found our centre pairing, because I think we're both agreed that Nathan's one of them. But we just haven't found our left or right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely Capoa based upon how well he's been playing this year and just his attitude to his football. That's what I like. He's a real goer this year and he's aggressive in a controlled way. He's hard to handle, so loving it. My bold prediction is that Jerome Hughes won't play on Friday.
Is the judiciary out yet?
He's been found guilty.
He has.
He's out.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Happy days.
So all we need is take my good hand, Munster to be
take my hand, Dad.
Yeah, or we just need mangle hand Munster to be ruled out by the surgeon later in the week, and we might possibly get within 20 of the Storm.
Yes, Hughes will miss 2 matches. There you go.
Yeah, anytime you can try to contest your charge and profess your innocence, they punish you. Seems like a good system, doesn't it?
Oh, bloody oath! Especially if we benefit.
So absolutely, yeah, certainly in this situation.
I'm guessing that means Jonah. I can't remember what his last name is. The young kid.
Pezet
will come in.
He'll come in and play, I would say, and I'd say now, based upon that, they'll probably
force Munster.
They'll probably do everything they can to get Munster to play, but fingers crossed that he gets ruled out by the surgeon and can't play after all. Then it will be a halves combination of Pezet and Wishart, I'm assuming. So that'd be interesting. That's probably the best you're ever going to get against the Storm, particularly with no Nelson, Asafa Solomona in there either.
You see, because of that knee complaint, hey?
Yeah. My bold prediction is we're going to go out to a 2-try-0 lead. Don't know how the game's going to play out after that, but we're going to actually get it off to a hot start. We've conceded a try at least in each of our first 3 games within the first 10, 15 minutes. So I see my bold prediction is that we're going to start the game a bit better, a bit more red hot this time around and get 1, if not 2 tries in the first 15, 20.
I like
10-0. Tigers will lead 10-0 at some point early in the game.
I love it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's come on, Nostradamus. Do us good.
Nostradamus.
Nah, he's gone.
And should I go one better and say it'll be a Staines double to get us there? No, I won't go that.
No,
Staines might get one of them.
It'll be a Staines and then a Dewey assist.
Yeah, I was gonna even say 1 each. Staines and a Tupou.
Ooh, 1 on each side, but Dewey sets up 1.
Anything more to add, my friend?
No, just I've said it 3 weeks in a row now. I just want to see a complete performance. I'm sick of seeing poor attitude, but I feel that the tide is turning. It's weird to say that after that performance against the Bulldogs, but I think I saw enough to see that the tide is turning in terms of attitude. I think the fact that,
believe it or not, we are doing a lot right as well underneath it all.
I think Appy saying that blatantly in the press conference, I think would, like, if anyone is in that team and hears that, you're embarrassed to not be, to be letting him down, considering what he brings to the team. So I'm hoping that they listen, and I'm hoping that instead of just being a typical, rugby league player where there's just air between the ears, they think and they understand that, if he's on, he's on. You need to be following him. So,
Yep, couldn't agree more. I agree. I believe that we are doing a lot right under the surface, and it's not any of the flashiness that looks good. That's certainly not putting W's in the win column. Where our discipline is quite good. We're winning the penalty counts easily. Our meterage is as good as it's been for a number of seasons. Our forwards are doing what they need to be doing. Our defense is relatively good, so to speak, at least through the middle and through the center. It's just about the obvious headaches around sorting out the attacking structure, sorting out the halves, and making sure that we can come to some sort of process that's going to yield some results and some consistent results and give us a platform on which to build over the course of this season. And we are a long-term project, as we know, but nevertheless, we still like to see some improvement along the way. So this Friday, 5 p.m. in Queensland and 6 p.m. down in Melbourne or in New South Wales. Ladies and gents, Facebook, Tiger Town Podcast, YouTube, Tiger Town Podcast. Funnily enough, we share the same name on both platforms. Get across, like and subscribe. You know what the deal is. Make contact, send us a message, comment on videos, share. That'd be awesome if you can. Share it with a mate or two. I've had a couple of people actually this week told me they've given the podcast a listen, and they are Parramatta Eels and South Sydney Rabbitohs supporters actually, and they quite enjoyed the show. So I said that some of the topics that we touch on are often not Tigers related, and we might try to bring a little bit more of that content into the show in a black, white, and orange flavor, no doubt. Two other podcasts that we know do it better than us. We say it every single week: West Life Podcast and the West Tigers Podcast. Do go and check those gentlemen out. Make sure you say that the two unfortunate souls from Tiger Town Podcast sent you. Other than that, mate, I think that the only thing left to do is say go the mighty Tigers.
Go the Tigers.